So welcome again. We're glad that you're here. So I have a list of attendees for today, but for the purposes of unemployment, you'll still need to mark in your unemployment account under the reemployment services that you have completed the creative job search workshop, and you still, of course, can attend all the other sessions. So career planning and preparing for the job hunt. Career planning. First off, I want to talk a little bit about discussing with you about losing the job and how this affects you. I also wanted to let you know that we have a 6-week course going on. So today is the career planning, but you can see also we have other classes which will be held every Tuesday up through November 17th. That's going to help you build your resume. We're going to talk more about the job interview. It's just going to give you a lot more tools to get out there and give you the confidence that you need to actually go and get that job. When you are in a position where you end up losing your job, there are all types of different attitudes, and as well as the way we feel, the way we look at things tend to change. I've worked with a lot of people who, when they are actually doing their job search, they are concerned because their job was part of their identity, part of who they were. And when they lose their job, they just don't feel like they have that same person. What we're going to talk about today, too, is that you are not necessarily who your job used to be. We're also going to talk about how you can take the experience that you've been through and adjust it a little bit and go out and possibly even get a better job. A lot of times we've also discovered that change comes to us. Sometimes the only reason that it's happening is because we're forced to do something different. So I just kind of want to let you know that we're going to give you the tools today to be able to recognize some of those feelings, but also what do you actually do with them. Typically, when we are doing this creative job search, we go around the room and introduce ourselves. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do that today, but what I would like to have you do is write in the chat box, briefly just state your occupation and the type of job that you're seeking. What we have found is because of this workshop, a lot of times you're actually doing networking just right within the workshop. So you may be able to find out some more information about jobs that are available just because you are attending this class. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, you need to be creative to get the attention of employers more now than ever. Everything is changing on a daily basis, so job loss can be difficult and it can impact many, many parts of your lives. Part of that it can impact is your attitude. It's tough to have a positive attitude and outlook when you're going through this, but it is essentially critical to the success and the choices that you make. It's also important to set a game plan for your next career move. So new occupations, or you could be into the same career industry, but now is the time to actually reflect on where do I want to go and what type of job do I want to go after. A lot of times you could take a job that you were working previously and those skills and transfer it into a different type of job, even though it's not the exact same industry that you are coming from. Job loss can result in emotional, psychological, financial, physical challenge. It actually impacts every aspect of a person's life, including your self-esteem, including your identity, your finances, your social life, your family life. This is the time that it is important to really take a look at how am I going to handle this and where do I want to go from this? It can be one of the most stressful events in your life, and it is actually right up there with divorce and separation and or loss of a loved one. So I'm a real strong believer in awareness is the key, and I want to give you permission to know that this is a stressful situation, losing your job, and that it actually is supposed to be. But there are ways that we can come out from under it. It's also a transition from employed to unemployed is hard. Change is hard, but there's also opportunity in it. A lot of times too, just from the pandemic, I've talked with a lot of people who are really struggling with being home every day and what do they do with that. One of the biggest mistakes in job search is hearing an antidote from one or two sources about something in job search and then applying it to the entire job search strategy. So trust me, everyone has an opinion on how your job search should look. So they'll say to you, can be hard for others to understand what job search is like. They'll say nobody's hiring right now because of the pandemic. They'll say stuff to you like, oh, you don't need to send cover letters. They'll say stuff to you like sending a thank you card after the interview is no longer important. What is important is that you start to really pay attention to what the employer in the job description is asking for, and that's what you will send. So for instance, if the employer is asking for you to send a resume and a cover letter, you want to make sure that you send the cover letter. I want to caution you on being very careful on who is giving you advice and also what advice you're actually taking to heart. Because our employment industry has changed so much, the people who are giving you advice aren't necessarily right. We are learning every day here at the Career Force how the industry is changing. So please just be aware that not everybody is giving you good advice. Another thing that we wanted to point out too is that expect to be on an emotional roller coaster through this process. You'll see by this slide that there are all different types of emotions that you'll go through, and this is actually normal. The important thing to learn from this is to identify where you are and when you are down and minimize the negative effects that you're feeling to bring yourself back up. Attitude helps us get through the constant ups and downs of job searching. So take charge of your attitude. It will give you strength, and it will also give you the ability to make good decisions on what type of job you want to go after. Another one is to recognize your true feelings. So the truth is that this is a shock to your whole system. Some things change and some things stay the same. Thank goodness. I want to remind you that things do not always stay the same. I always say, especially since we live in Minnesota, give it 3 days and things will change. Weather is a good example. Okay. Common feelings because you've lost a job could be anger, depression, grief, self-blame. It's important to recognize these feelings as a normal process of overcoming the job loss. Find a safe outlet. Find a way to deal with your feelings in a positive way, whether that be exercising, journaling. I'm a strong believer in journaling. I do journaling myself every day. It's a great thing to reflect on where your mind is. It's also fun to look back and see the progress that you've made. Spend time with good quality time with your family or your friends, even just sitting down playing a board game. Another thing that's really important is to forgive yourself. So search for forgiveness for yourself and also forgiveness for your former boss. I have worked with people in the past who they may have a grudge or issue with either a former boss or a former colleague that they were working with. The unfortunate part of that is that if you don't forgive, oftentimes it comes across in the interview. So my previous job to this job was I worked for a nonprofit. And during that time, I was the operations manager. So I did a lot of interviewing, a lot of hiring, a lot of firing. And I was taught as an interviewer to recognize if you had a grudge against somebody else. So just be aware of that actually does happen. In addition to that, it's also very important that you learn to accept change, as difficult as it is. Accept that this is another part of life's changes and that you have to accept it so that you can move forward. let go of your past job, your past employers. They want to know that you are ready to move on in regards to your future employers. A lot of the employers that I work with too, their reputation is everything. And if you go to the interview and you start to say negative things about your old boss or about your old employer or about the company that you worked for, the new employer who's interviewing you will say, my goodness, if this doesn't work out, what are you going to say about us? And they won't hire you just based on that. Even though you're highly qualified, you have the skills to do the job. So that's another reason why it is important to let some of that stuff that has happened to you in the past, let it go. It is our emotional reaction and attitude that we use when deciding whether to accept, adapt, or resist change. It's up to you. Sheila, I think this is a good time to stop and just check in with you and see if we have any questions.
We haven't had any specific questions yet.
Okay.
We're looking at a lot of comments about people who want to change careers, so I think, as we go along, the information will be very useful to them.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Sheila. Okay, so you have to decide every day how you will let your job loss impact you. So your attitude is going to determine the success of your job search. Maybe you can take time to stop and regroup and take a look at the jobs that you have said, you know what, I always have wanted to do that, but since I had this old job and I had the stability, I'm just going to stay where I'm at. A lot of the clients that we work with now, they are actually getting excited about looking at the jobs that they really wanted to pursue, but because they had the old job, they just actually didn't follow through with it. So we can help you with that too, in addition to making your resume where it is transferring the skills that you already have into the new job. And oftentimes it's just the way you word things and the way you look at something, okay? Attitude is still the key to employers. I want you to ask yourself, would an employer hire me today? And am I the best version of myself? I always also believe in practicing the golden rule. So when I am at work, oftentimes I've had to ask myself, and the golden rule is that you treat people the way you would want to be treated. And oftentimes I've had to stop and say, wait a second, Glory, would you want someone to treat you that way? So it kind of gives me a filter to know a stop, think, act skill. So when I am actually at interviewing with someone or I am interviewing someone, um, it's interesting how some of our attitudes actually will come across during the interview. Employers want to seek and find out your true attitude when they're interviewing you, and they'll ask you questions like this. Give me an example of how you deal with change you don't like at work. Why did you leave your last job? Tell me about a supervisor that you did not like. So you have one chance to make a good first impression, and a negative attitude can lead to a missed opportunity. Attitude is the one thing that we do have control over. So maybe if you are wearing your crabby pants several days a week, you might want to work on your attitude first before going on and networking in a Zoom meeting, for instance. Sheila, I wanted to ask everybody, and you can just answer yes or no. How many of the people who are attending today have worked with someone who came to work and who were difficult to work with, who actually had their crabby pants on? So if you can just put yes or no that in the chat, that would be wonderful. Talking with others who will keep your attitude positive really helps too. So I want you to be careful that you are not hanging out with a bunch of negative people. They definitely can affect your attitude and can stop you from going after some of the things that you really are looking to accomplish in your job search and in finding employment. Keep in mind that negativity attracts negativity. So it goes without saying that you want to make sure that the advice that you're actually getting from people is going to be a positive one. Another resource that I am really advocate for is coming to these job clubs. go ahead and join a support group, or if you even go to your local church, anywhere where you can actually get a break from thinking the burden of I need to find a job, I need to find a job. Another thing that works really well is exercising. If you're not so much on exercising, just even going for a walk, it's a proven fact that if you can take a break and then come back into your job search again, you just kind of come in with a fresh attitude. There are also counseling is options where there are resources from professionals. Only you can decide where you are at on the roller coaster ride, but just make sure that you're taking good care of yourself. Positive self-talk or positive affirmations. I don't know, this will probably date me here, but I don't know if you remember on Saturday Night Live when Stuart Smalley used to sit in front of a mirror and he would say, I am good enough, I am smart, I am enough, gosh darn, people like me. Even though it was very funny, to be honest with you, it was a very effective way to indirectly keep good control of your thoughts. Laughter and humor is really a good thing too. So give yourself permission to sit down and maybe watch a good comedy and then go back into your job search. So much of our self-talk is negative. So start to use and get used to using the positive affirmations because it can offset that negative self-talk. This whole thing is not your fault. You will find an even better job or career. It's important to say the I am. So I am capable of meeting this challenge. Um, I am a good person. Um, I deserve good things, and good things are going to happen to me. If you could go ahead and enter into the chat box one-word answers like, what are some ways you are working to overcome the stress of job loss? What types of outlets do you use to relieve stress? The reason we're having you add that into the chat box is because, one, we're curious, but also more importantly, by you adding that and sharing it with us, you're also sharing it with everyone, and it gives us a better idea of also different tools out there that are working. Another way that you can relieve stress is through breathing, maintaining structure. Make sure that you are getting plenty of sleep, that you're eating 3 meals a day, that you have 2 snacks, drink plenty of water. Another way that I do to reduce stress which works excellent for me is to meditate. So every morning I spend 3 minutes, not hours and hours, but 3 minutes on meditating on what I am thankful and grateful for. That just keeps you into that better positive attitude. Before setting your next job goal, you may need to do some self-examination. So you want to get a game plan going. So assess yourself. Skills assessments can be taken through employment counselors at the career force or online. What I've found oftentimes is that you have many, many skills that you are not even recognizing as skills. So I'll give you an example. If heights don't bother you, it's easy to think that, well, heights don't bother anybody. Everybody has that skill. To be honest with you, I'll self-disclose here about myself. I don't care for heights. So in order for me to climb up on a ladder, I can go 2 scaffolding high. But boy, if you get me on that 3rd scaffolding, something starts to click into my head. I start to shake. I get all sweaty. I get nervous. I can't do that. I used to think that if you could speak, you could public speak. Come to find out, not everybody wants to public speak, and I love to do it. So that turned out being a skill. I did not recognize it as a skill until I realized that other people don't want to necessarily do it. So be careful when you are talking about your skills in your own mind. Be careful at saying, well, everybody can do that. Just because people can do it does not mean they want to. And if you can find something that not everybody wants to do, guaranteed you're going to make more money. You also want you to do your homework. So some of these websites that you're seeing on the screen will help you with letting you know the labor market research out there for the career that you may be considering. Is it a part of a growing profession? If you're thinking of making a big career change, first research the time and the cost involved. Fill in the skill gaps, meaning whether you are staying in the same career or not. You may have some skill gaps to fill. Maybe you need to renew a certificate. Maybe you need to take a class in Excel, for instance, or maybe you need to get a license that will make you more competitive in the job market. Maybe the company that you are applying for, they're asking for more advanced computer training. When you go on our Career Force website, you're going to see that we have a lot of different skills and tools that you can hone up your skills and use to end up being a more resourceful and more needed employee. Another thing too, we recommend that you can check out our dislocated worker services, whether you're staying in the same career or not. You may make a choice either way to stay in your current occupation, but not everybody can or should start a new career either. The key is for you to get a better idea. One thing that we won't do is we are not going to tell you what type of career to go after. So that is your homework project. But once you tell us, you know, I want to go into this profession, then we can go ahead and help you with that. This is a new feature on our Career Force where you're going to find when you go on there, there are online tools. So it's easy to find all of the great online resources like interest and skills assessments, jobs in demand during COVID. There also is Coursera, which you can go on and get refresher in Excel or Word. There are a lot of different certificates that are available. If you do them while you're logged in, it will also save your results. This is the main screen for My Skills of My Future. Okay, you enter in your current or your past job and it will come up with a list of occupations that require a similar skill set. So I love this because, again, you have skills that you're like, well, I used to be a painter. I'm only going to be able to go after jobs that are painting jobs, when that simply isn't true. You could go into furniture moving because that's something that you do while you're painting. There are a lot of different skills that a painter has that you can transfer into new jobs. The state of Minnesota data tools for job skills transfer assessments gives you a better idea, and it explains to you in an expert way the different jobs that are actually available right now. And we've expanded this list for business and financial operations as well. Okay, so preparing for the job hunt. It's important to understand.
Lauren, can you take a couple questions?
Yes, I can.
Okay, before we go to the next section.
Yes.
Okay, we have a question. Are there any tips on how to recover from job search rejections?
Okay, job search rejections. I guess I need a little more information. When they mean they've searched for a job.
I'm assuming that it's maybe after an interview and you're rejected. But if the participant wants to clarify a little more.
Yes. Well, let's go with what you said, Sheila. Obviously, when we go and interview for a job, there's probably one job available, and not everybody is going to be able to get hired because there's only one job available. What I recommend that you do if you didn't get the job, ideally, if you could get a hold of either the person that interviewed you or human resources and ask them for some feedback. One, if you got the job interview, that means that your resume made the employer interested in wanting to learn more about you. But it's important to get some feedback. And again, a lot of times, maybe we said something that the employer wasn't so crazy about. Maybe simply they hired somebody else because they had more skills. I want to let you know that one thing I found that was really interesting is when I would go out and advocate with the employers, so I'm talking to them, asking them, what is the most important thing to you when you hire someone? And I would always used to think, well, they're going to say that they have all the skills to do the job. But every single employer said, is that employee going to fit in? So remember that's the most important thing to the employer is, are you going to fit in? We can teach you how to do the job, but we can't teach you how to be nice. Okay? Did they say anything else, Sheila?
No, not on that one.
Okay.
And one more question.
Yes.
What do you do when you work in a hostile environment? How do you address questions about the job ending because of the hostile environment?
Okay, so when the job ended, when you ended and you are at the new interview, you do not bring up the fact that it was a hostile environment. Uh, First off, working in a hostile environment is completely exhausting and it's very, very hard on your health. So I would be grateful and thankful that you're not there anymore. But what I would do is at your new interview, when you're interviewing and they say, why did you leave your last job? I would use these type of words. I am looking for a career advancement. I am really excited to try and do some new skills and take the skills from my old job and bring them to the table to advance within your position. Another thing that I always recommend is I recommend that you find out the company's mission statement. And a lot of times you can say, when they say, why did you leave your last job? You can say, well, you know, I have done a lot of research on your company, Mr. Employer, and I believe strongly in your mission statement where it says that your mission statement says that you believe in helping others learn how to help themselves. And then go into, I want to be a part of something like that. Okay, so I'm not saying anything negative about the old employer, but instead I'm talking about how I'm going to bring new and more exciting things to my new position where I'm going to be able to make the employer some money by the skills that I have learned in the past. Okay? It's another thing that's really important is to understand the importance of being organized and keeping good records. So you want to make sure that you are actually managing your schedule. One of the things that gets really frustrating is when the employer says to you, thank you for your resume, and they hand you off an application when you're sitting there ready to go into the interview. That's why it's important to keep good records. Until you get your ideal position, I always recommend that you keep the address and the names of the companies for the past 10 years inside your wallet. It's very difficult to remember the address of the job that you worked at 5 years ago. But a lot of times in an application, Mr. Employer is asking you for that address. The main reason that they are doing that is because they maybe want to send something to that past employer, maybe getting a reference or again, when you are getting ready to go into the interview, it's a stressful time. So you want to be able to have all your records and your contacts and your phone numbers just very easy and right there for you to use. The next screen, Sheila, I'm going to have you go ahead and talk about some of the SMART goals and how important they are.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, I just want to give you an example of a SMART goal so you have an idea of how this tool can for you in your job search. So SMART goals will help you stay on track, balance all the facets of your job search, and make you accountable for what you need to do to get to that next job. So let's just take a look at what each of the words for SMART stands for in helping you set your goals. So first of all, you want your goal to be specific. You know, exactly what do you want to accomplish by setting this goal. So in this example, our goal is to prepare a resume. This is something that you can accomplish. It's realistic, And it's something you can do in a short period of time so you won't give up on your goal. You want to make sure that your goal is attainable. And then measurable. How are you going to know that you're on track to complete this goal? And it might help if you set some mini deadlines, or have a timeline to go by, maybe tell a friend what your goal is so they can check in on you to keep you accountable. In this instance, for preparing a resume, you may set a measurable mini goal of having your resume ready to show to a career counselor within 10 days. And that will help you stay on track. And then achievable. What resources can you use to complete that goal? And a good place to start might be one of the Career Force virtual online resume workshops. Those are very valuable and information. Have an online resume review. You can go onto careerforcemn.com and have someone in your local career force review your resume for you. And then those skill assessments that Glory was talking about, those are a great way to get a list of your skills that you can present on your resume and show the employer how you use those skills on the job and maybe some of the outcomes that came about using those for your last employer. And then your job history, that's a good resource for your resume, and job descriptions. Those are good places to get information to portray on your resume as well. And I have recommendations from past employers and performance reviews provide good information to put on your resume. And then relevant. Is this goal important in your job search? So in today's world for job searching, we're doing a lot of online applications, emailing resumes, so it's really important to have a resume ready to go. And once you can do that, can relieve some of your job search stress, save you a little bit of time. And once you have your resume ready, you can go in and change a few things to target it to specific jobs. And then, as people were mentioning in the chat, they were looking for different careers. So when you're working on your resume, you can look at the skills you use and maybe show how they can transfer to that new job that you're looking for. And then timely. Have a specific date when you're going to complete your goal. So in this situation, maybe after you've met with that career counselor, you can say that I'm going to have my resume ready to go 2 days after that and apply the feedback that you got from the counselor. Then you can maybe show that friend that is going to check up on you to see that you had your resume done. And of course, you can be working on more than one goal at a time. Just make sure they're achievable. You don't want to, put yourself in a situation where you're going to give up. And, prioritize your goals. What you need to do first to get to that job that you're seeking. And part of the follow-up materials that we'll send you is a SMART goal worksheet, so you'll have that to go off from when you are working on your SMART goals. Okay? Okay, Glory, back to you.
So much. Thank you so much, Sheila. I think it's also important, too, to give yourself a pat on the back when you do achieve some of these goals. And just like Sheila said, make sure that they are not way out there and something that you cannot achieve, but instead just even getting up and going on Minnesota Works and finding 5 jobs. After you've done that, then go for a walk or do something that you enjoy. But again, give yourself some credit for the goals that you're achieving as you go along in this process. The next slide talks about actually researching the company that you're going to be applying for. Like I had said, in my previous job, I was working for a nonprofit. And I remember interviewing somebody one time, and what he said to me was, "What do you actually do here?" No, this is a very well-known nonprofit in addition to that. So please study the company's products and their services. Know a little bit about the history of the company. You have every right to find out about, again, their mission statement, the recent changes in their initiatives. Find out about the company's philosophy and what they actually believe. Human resource policies. One mega company that is out there, which is very popular, they actually have 14 different criteria that you have to talk about during the interview, and they don't tell you that ahead of time. But when you go ahead and look on their website, it will tell you what they are looking for during the interview. So, like I say, when you research the company, a lot of times they will have the answers to what they want to hear from you during the interview right on their website. Um, it can make a huge difference in whether you get the job or not. And it also gives you a better idea on actually, do I want to work for this company? Knowing that their philosophy is that certain way that they're stressing. Where should you do your research? I always say to first start with the company website. Almost every company out there has a website nowadays, but certainly not all. Another thing, if you can talk with a person who's working there and talk to them about, what do you like about working with the company? What don't you like? Do you know their beliefs? Do you know their mission statement? Um, Another thing that you can do is actually focus on your own network. And networking is known to be the quickest way for people to get a job. So a lot of times, again, when you're talking to someone who already works at the company, maybe you could ask that person if they could give you a recommendation on one other person that you could talk to, just so that you can get a really good idea of where their beliefs are. Another thing that we recommend is informational interviews. So what that is that's where you actually call the company and ask to who you would speak to do an informational interview. So informational interview would be where you sit down with someone at that company, spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes of their time. You're not going to be there for hours and hours. Just be very respectful of their time. If you say 10 to 15 minutes, then make sure that's as long as you're going to stay. Go into that interview prepared, and this is where you are actually going to be asking the questions. You're going to ask them, what type of skills they're looking for. Do I need any training if I were to apply here? Um, the biggest part is, the key is you are not going to ask them for a job, okay? And you're not going to ask them, would you consider hiring me? It's not that type of interview. It's the type of interview where you're going to go in and find out more information about the company itself. Another great idea is the networking card. I really like this idea. It's where you can go ahead and pass this out to anyone that you end up bumping into, telling everyone, I'm looking for a job. Do you know anybody that's hiring? Networking cards are business cards for job seekers or anyone who wants to self-market their skills. They work great. Not everyone will want a copy of your resume in a network or social function. So this is a way that you can get your information out there without handing off your resume to everyone that you see. Networking cards can do three things. They can supply a key contact information, meaning you, how do they get a hold of you? They can jumpstart the recipient's curiosity where they're looking at it like, I think I want to know more about this person. And they also jog their memories. So if a job does come up and they say, oh yeah, that's right, Glory gave me her business card, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to get a hold of her. It's a very easy way for them to keep your contact information when a job does arise. Tips for networking cards is you want to determine what information to include. Make sure that you check for typos. Give a description of your profession. Get cards professionally printed or print at home with high quality products, okay? Or you can use Vistaprint. Vistaprint is a great resource and inexpensive. Typically, you can get 500 cards for $9.99, but get creative. This is the appropriate time for you to list on that card what job you're looking for in the industry. You also want to enter, I would like to have you enter into the chat box if anybody has ever used networking cards and what they thought of them. You can see this is a sample network card. You just don't want to miss an opportunity, for instance, if you're in the grocery store, at a ball game, or if you run into a friend of a friend, okay? Sheila, is anybody saying that they were using cards?
This is Art. Jumping in for, Sheila's back on. I'll let Sheila take the question.
Okay, thank you, Art.
Mm-hmm.
Sheila, in the chat, is anybody saying that they use the networking cards?
Yes, we are getting some comments. People have used them. Nice to have. Used them years ago. I did lose part of my chat when I was kicked off there for a while. So, Art, if you see anything before that, you can jump in here.
Yeah, there were a couple people who had experimented with them a while back. They're certainly not something that are extremely common, but it is a good takeaway for employers. You know, it's a great networking tool, if nothing else. We lose the ability to use our professional business cards that maybe we've had in the past, and nothing looks worse than whiting out the contact information from a former employer, and I have seen that. It's a very cheap method of doing a value add to any networking situation. I'm going to go back on mute and let Sheila take over.
Thank you, Art. The next slide talks about portfolios. You know, the first time I heard the word portfolio, I was wondering, what in the world is that? And it sounds like it's got to be something pretty fancy. Actually, a portfolio is a folder that you are going to put your resumes in. You're going to bring it to the interview. That's also where you're going to put any certificates, license, your letters of recommendation, also your references. You want to have them in there. When I would go to interviews, I would always make sure that I have 5 copies of my resume in my portfolio. Now, I know you're saying 5. Why would you need that many? I've already sent my resume to them. They have it. This actually happened to me. I was waiting to go into an interview. The interviewer came out and said to me, Glory, I don't think we can interview you today. Our computer system went down and we did not print your resume. So I said to them, well, you know, I happen to have 5 copies with me, and it was a panel interview, meaning there were 5 people who interviewed me. And so I just handed those resumes off, and they did interview me. I did get hired, and in addition to that, I believe that it made me look like I was very organized. So you want to go to the interview with your portfolio, having everything ready to go, just in case, okay? I also wanted to say, if you're bringing certificates or something that pertains to the job, make sure you have a copy that you can leave on the table. With a certificate, for instance, you'll make a copy, just a black and white copy is just fine. You'll say, here's my certificate in whatever would apply to that job that you're applying for, but they don't look at it. They don't even pay attention. But guaranteed, once you are done with the interview and it's still laying on the table, they will look at it, and then it will prompt them and remind them that, oh yeah, this person's also certified in this type of profession that they're applying for, okay? References. So our last topic for you is references. This is a very important part of the whole job process is your references. Please choose someone that is going to give you a good reference. I would call references from time to time on people that I had interviewed, and they'd say things to me like, what? They use me as a reference? No, I'm not giving them a reference, and hang the phone up on me. Another time, I had somebody who actually had inappropriate voicemail. So when I was calling for the reference, they had something on their voicemail that was not appropriate, and I thought, ooh, boy, if this person's hanging out with people like that, I don't know if I want them working here. So you have to be careful that your references are good references. They're going to talk positively about you. Please get permission from them and let them know ahead of time. What I would do with my references too is I would give them a copy of the job description I had applied for, and I would highlight the skills that I wanted them to talk about if they got that reference call. The interesting part about that is when I'd hand that off to my reference, they'd read it and they'd go, wow, Glory, I didn't even know you could do these things. Okay, so it's also a great way to let your reference know that you do have all these different types of skills. I want to point out and have you remember that if you don't know all of your skills and you don't know how to put them into words, you can't expect your reference to necessarily know that either, but you certainly can educate them and tell them so that they will be confident when they do get that phone call to be able to talk to them. Okay. Um, And please don't forget to thank your references, okay? I just think that being thankful and grateful goes a long way. And to tell your reference, thank you for letting me use you for a reference. And then make sure you let them know if you got the job or not. It's also a great way to get some feedback if you talk to the reference. And guaranteed, the reference usually calls you and says, hey, Glory, I just got a call from ABC Company, and they're asking for a reference on you. And here's how it went. So they can give you kind of some insight on how the process of the hiring is going as well. Ask participants, I want to find out if you guys have any questions regarding the topics that we've gone through. So in regards to getting organized, how to get SMART goals, what and where to research. I'd like for you to just take a look at this last screen where it talks about the checkpoint on recovering from job loss, facing the challenge every day. It's important to set some small goals every day so that you can accomplish them and feel good about accomplishing them. Make sure that you value the positive attitude and realize that it's important for you to keep that positive attitude. Develop your game plan. Make sure that you are eating 3 meals a day and getting your 2 snacks, sleeping well. Set your SMART goals. Like Sheila said, we're going to be sending everything, the PowerPoint that you have we've been talking about today, also the SMART goal worksheet. We'll be sending that out to you by tomorrow. So you'll be able to review everything so you don't have to be concerned about memorizing everything that we've been going through today. Remember that you're going to research the company before you are going to actually apply with them. You're going to find out what their mission statement is. Make sure that if you have any networking opportunities that you take advantage of that, meaning that you're going to tell people you're looking for a job. A lot of times when I'm working with clients too, they're full of shame because they're not working. So instead of saying, I'm looking for a job, do you know of anybody that's hiring? They just don't say anything. A lot of times we're missing opportunities to find a job a lot quicker just because we're not asking people. So when I was looking for a job, I would be asking everybody. So it could be family members, it could be someone who were standing chit-chatting, maybe even in the elevator. They call it the elevator speech. And what that means is that you're standing next to someone, even though you might not know them very well, but you can, be cordial with them, ask them how things are going, how's your day going? I'm looking for a job. Do you know of anybody that's hiring by chance? I know you don't know me very well, but I'm a hard worker and I would just like to find a good place to go to work every day. Again, just feel free to network, okay? Also take a look at Vistaprint, get those networking cards. I know in the chat a lot of people said that they used to do it years ago, but they are not doing it anymore. I think this is a good way to quickly let someone know how talented and how skillful you are, in addition to how did they get a hold of you. I also want to point out that if someone is calling you for an interview, please make sure that your voicemail is appropriate. Oftentimes I would call people and their voicemail would be inappropriate. So let me give you an example. The one, and I think it's kind of funny, but not when you're waiting for a future employer to possibly call you. But it's a voicemail where they say, hello? Hello? I got you. That voicemail actually is inappropriate when you have a future employer calling you. So make sure that you are prepared in all different aspects to go to work and to go in for that interview. Sheila, I wanted to check with you again. Do we have any more questions?
do. Just a couple.
Okay.
So someone is asking, I have letters of recommendation from employers that I worked for over 10 years ago. Would I use them in the interview process?
Okay, I guess I would recommend if you, as long as it doesn't have the date on it, then feel free to go ahead and use the letter of recommendations. But if it does have the date on it, I wouldn't use them. Or you can always contact that person and ask them if they would consider rewriting the letter of recommendation without the date. Okay. It's important to remember too that when you do get these letter of recommendations, you don't know for sure where and when and where you're going to be sending them. So try not to have the person who's writing it put a date on it.
Okay, and then we have another question. How do you showcase your recommendations on LinkedIn? Is it possible to move them to the top of your profile? And then I think there was a clarification on that question about, the question was in regards to recommendations people write on LinkedIn, not reference their attachments.
Yes. Well, fortunately, on week 4, we are going to be having internet and social media workshops specifically with LinkedIn. Okay. Art, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had responded to that email. I did get the clarification. What I had said still holds true. I'm looking at my LinkedIn right now. I've asked that question of LinkedIn personnel, actually, because it's a question that comes up quite a bit, is if I have a very relevant reference that a recommendation letter that someone wrote me on LinkedIn, but it's down way on the bottom, how do I get it to the top? You can't reorder them, at least last time I checked. They're based on when they were submitted. So there is the option of asking for a revision, or you can choose not to show it and then contact that person and ask for them to resubmit one. I know that's a big ask, but the easy way to do it is to copy and paste what they had written originally into the email. And just say, if you would be comfortable resubmitting this, it could bring your recommendation to the top because it's the most relevant currently in my job search.
Thank you, Art. I also know too that when you're actually applying, sometimes the application through the internet will ask you, they give you an actual place where you can download or upload your letter of recommendations. Then go ahead and do that. It gets a little frustrating though because oftentimes the employer's not asking for or doesn't have a place for you to put your letter of recommendation. So that's again when you would bring it to the interview and just leave it sitting on the table for them to take a look at later. Sheila, I think we have 3 minutes left, so we have time for one more question. If we
Yes,
have one.
we have one more question.
Okay.
And I believe this is in reference to, I believe, recommendation letters. So I have been self-employed for over 20 years. My employers are my clients. What would you suggest the best approach in this situation?
Well, I'll tell you what, your clients are excellent, very powerful letters of recommendation because they paid you to do it, to do the job. Okay, so what I would recommend is that you get a hold of up to 3 of your past clients who would be able to give you a good reference and then ask them if they would write a letter of recommendation in addition to that. Sometimes too, the person you're asking for a letter of recommendation, they don't know exactly what to put on that letter. You have every right to go ahead and give them suggestions and a little bit of guidance on what you would like to see in the letter. Another thing that I recommend is that you share the job description with the person that's writing the letter of recommendation so they can tailor their recommendation towards the job you're applying for. So folks, we are down to 1 minute left. I'm hoping that we answered most of your questions. If we didn't, again, put them in the chat. What we will be doing is when we do send out the email by tomorrow, you will get the answers to your questions also. So we will address them. We sit down and we take a look at the chat box. We're also going to give you a copy of the PowerPoint. You should be prepared to start to job hunt by the time tomorrow afternoon rolls around and you review everything. We've given you a lot of information this morning, so we certainly don't expect you to memorize it, but we will give you something so you can put your hands on it and review it and start looking for a job. I also want to remind you that we still have up to 6 classes that are free to you that are going to help you with finding employment. So our next class would be next Tuesday, and it's identifying your skills and applications and talking more about portfolios. So we're hoping to see you then. Have a wonderful day.